minutes or so. And we're going to take the next couple of minutes to talk a little bit about stress and stress management, and then particularly how that tends to manifest itself in a college setting. And so we'll talk for a little bit, and then we'll actually do some practical things and practice some different stress management skills and some relaxation things. So as always, I welcome you to cut on your camera if you would like to join, but don't feel pressure. You don't have to. It's just always nicer to talk to faces than names. And Chris or Angie, somebody will be monitoring our chat today. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to take yourself off mute and ask, or you can feel free to drop them into the chat box as well. And we'll make sure that we answer any questions that you have. I will sometimes ask maybe for you to share a little bit of information. And again, you can take yourself off mute, or you can drop thoughts into the chat box, whatever you are more comfortable with. Always open to questions, so just let me know if you have anybody. So I don't know about you, but summer in student services in a college is kind of our craziest time, as we're bringing on a lot of new students and trying to get everything ready for the start of the semester. So I kind of identify with this cat that talks about being so stressed out over being stressed out that can't even sometimes remember all the things that are stressing me out, and that causes me more stress. Maybe you have experienced that before, so we're going to talk about how to wrangle that into control. So we talk all the time about stress in our society. We hear it on the news, we see things on YouTube, we see celebrities that have to go into, various kinds of treatment programs, and a lot of times they'll say for exhaustion, right? And whatever exhaustion means might mean a whole lot of things, but typically it's something around the topic of stress. So when we think about stress, the Oxford Dictionary says a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding circumstances. So that implies that you can put your finger on where that emotional strain or tension or what the demanding circumstance is. And the reality for what we experience in real life is kind of, stress is sort of like an onion. There are all these different layers that impact different pieces of our life, or impact us in different ways. And so I'll give you the opportunity to share what stress is for you, but I will share a story from a student one time when we were talking about stress, and we talked about stress being like an onion, and the student said that they worked in sales, and that every day when they got up and got ready to go to work, they had to put on their sales suit, and not literally a suit, but like almost like armor that they had to put on to like gird themselves up for battle or prepare to engage with people. This was not a person who was very well suited for sales. So this person was doing a job where every day they got up and felt like, okay, I'm going to work. Let me get ready for battle. So I thought that was like, when we talk about how stress manifests itself in our everyday life, that student had a pretty good feel for, my job is causing me stress every day, but not so much awareness of like, maybe I'm not cut out for sales. I did a sales job when I was in college for a hot minute, and I spent so much time talking people out of buying things because they needed to save money for their kids' college education and various and sundry other things that I didn't make it very long. It was pretty obvious to me I was not in the right fit. So I'll give you a minute if you if you wouldn't mind, feel free to, like I said, drop kind of what stress means to you in the chat box, or if you want to come off mute, that'll be okay too.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Brittany, glad you could join us.
Stress for me would be taking care of all three of my kids and trying to make sure they keep their grades up while working as well.
Who I identify with that. Yeah, those are big things to juggle, definitely. Is this your first semester with us?
Yes, I decided to go back for teaching. I work at a school system right now as an aide.
Well, that's great. We're glad to have you starting with us, and hopefully you will learn some of these practical skills today that maybe will help you with the kiddos that you're working with too, in addition to your own family. So I hope you take something out of it. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to share anything that kind of resonates for you?
Well, I'm not a student, but I'll share what stresses me out. I think getting pulled in all different directions all day, every day, that is stressful. And then the high demands of having a family that you got to go home to at night after you've worked a really long day, that's also pretty stressful.
Yeah. Something that's stressful to me is, and somebody put a meme out not long ago that said, the worst part of my life is knowing I have to plan what's for dinner every night for the rest of my life. And I thought, oh my gosh, nailed it. Which is why in my family, we have nights where we just eat cereal. All right, so let's kind of move along, and let's talk about kind of the anatomy of stress. And I'm going to preface this with saying I'm not a scientist. I'm not a neurobiologist. I've never taken an anatomy and physiology class, but I've always been fascinated with kind of learning about our brains being like this incredible organ that keeps our lives possible. And so thinking about stress, I think it's important for us to be able to identify stressors in our lives so that we can figure out how to mitigate it. It's also good to know the biological processes that are happening when you're experiencing stress. So there are a lot of different frameworks or theories about the brain and about stress, and kind of how how our brains process stress. So there's a growing amount of literature about what our brains do when we're traumatized by things, which is really interesting stuff to look into. But we're not going to go quite that deep today. We're going to kind of stay more on the surface, just thinking like overall big ideas. So I'm going to take you back to the caveman and cavewoman days, right? So if we picture ourselves being cave people back in the day, what we're worried about, what we're spending a lot of time and energy on is, I need to eat so I don't starve. I need to stay warm so I don't freeze to death. I need for saber-toothed tigers not to eat me when I go out into the world. Like, right? Like back in those times, it really, when we say, fight or flight or stress is kind of a live or die situation, that's what we're thinking about. So if we take our cave person, and our cave person is out hunting or gathering, and they stumble across a saber-toothed tiger, that person's brain is going to go through this process of deciding, okay, what do I do? Do I fight the tiger? Maybe if I poke its eye out, it will run away and leave me alone. Do I run from the tiger and hope I can make it to safety before it catches me? Do I totally panic and freeze and my brain won't push me through any action at all? All of those things are very common and normal responses to extreme stress. And so what's happening in our brain is there's this part of our brain called the amygdala, and the amygdala is our fear center. It is the part of our brain that is responsible for keeping us safe and alive. So this is what triggers all of those things that make fight, flight, or freeze possible in us. So what happens is the stressful situation occurs. The amygdala immediately jumps into action. It shuts down all of the parts of the brain that are not responsible for keeping you alive in the moment. It overstimulates all the parts of the brain that are responsible for keeping you alive in the moment. And it dumps a ton of stress hormones into your body. The amygdala gives you the adrenaline rush. The amygdala releases all of this cortisol, which is a stress hormone that that helps to enable your responses to stress. So you have this whole like big stress hormone dump that goes through your body. And that's why like every now and then you'll see a story about a car accident, and you know, somebody will come and lift a car off of a child, right? That is, their amygdala has kicked into gear and it has shut down everything except the strength of helping the person that they're trying to help. So then the next thing that happens after that hormone burst and that burst of action, then some parts of our brain start trying to process and analyze and figure out like what's next, what is the next response. So we start sort of thinking again, but we're really thinking about the stress. And then after it all happens, then we carry the trauma with us. So most of us carry some sort of trauma from something in our lives, whether it's a, you know, car accident, whether it's a person who's been cruel or abusive to us, whether it's the loss of a close loved one, especially at a young age. Most of us carry something from our past that kind of gets triggered from time to time. And the closer we are to the event, the stronger the trigger is. But some traumas never stop triggering us. So that's kind of our third response to stress. When we kind of back up a little bit, because you know that's like a global idea of stress and what it does to our body. If we want to kind of get a little more narrow, not looking at all the trees, but really kind of focusing in on, okay, well, what does that mean for me as a student? Because as a student and a person in the US in this day and age, I'm not facing saber-toothed tigers every day, right? I mean, I guess it could, well, not a saber-tooth, some other tiger. It could happen if something escapes from the zoo, but you know, this is not the story of our lives. The story of our lives and the stresses that we are confronting are oftentimes things like financial stresses. How am I going to make all of my ends meet and still take the time to be a college student? It is stress around test anxiety. When we ask students about kind of mental health, one of the things that's the most common response is a lot of students experience test anxiety. Maybe not all the time, maybe not in every class, maybe not in every subject. Most of us have experienced that at some point in our lives. We get stressed about how to get all of the things done, especially around midterms and around the end of the year when all of your big projects and papers and final exams are due. Those are high stress times. We tend to get more stressed around the winter holidays. So all of the religious holidays that happen between November and January, and all of the secular ones, and being around family in different ways, and you know, keeping Uncle Jack from talking politics at the Thanksgiving dinner table. Like holidays tend to be high stress time for us as human beings in general. So when we experience stress in our real lives, we're not necessarily experiencing a tremendous amount of live or die stress, right? We're dealing with like everyday stressors. The thing is, our bodies are not always great at distinguishing stressors that are going to kill us and stressors that we can manage, but that kind of amp us up or give us anxiety. So even though, like, you might be sitting down to take your statistics class or statistics test, real story here from me, and the instructor puts that test in front of you and you look down and you say, oh my gosh, this entire midterm exam is 2 questions. And if I don't get these 2 questions right, if I don't get them both right, I am failing. I am getting a 50% on this test. Happened to me in graduate school. Let me tell you, there were no tigers in that room, but that test might as well have been. The response that it triggered in me was, I'm going to burst out crying in the middle of the classroom. I'm going to get up and lock myself in the bathroom, like panic, 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 before I could finally be like, wait a second. Okay, maybe I can answer like part of the question and get, partial credit or something, and kind of get myself back in gear. Those are the kinds of stressors that are happening to us, more often than anything else. And so kind of thinking about some of the things that are happening in your body when you have one of those stress responses. The slide show kind of lists some of those things, but if you wouldn't mind, like, think about times in your life where you have been in a period where you're dealing with a lot of stress, and what has that done to you physically? Like, what are your takeaways from that? All right. Feel free to chime in or put something in the chat. But, when you see here, like, those stress hormones dump into your body, adrenaline, when you have an adrenaline dump, it makes you sweat. So your heart rate shoots up, your respiratory rate speeds up. A lot of times you might feel nausea, and it's because all of those signals from your brain telling your digestive system to digest your food halt, and then your digestive system is like, what's going on? And so sometimes you end up feeling nauseous or getting butterflies, carrying a lot of tension. If you've ever had a massage or a chair massage and somebody is like, you are as tight as a rubber band, that's one of the ways that we carry our tension. In the moment, when you're having one of those stress responses, and thinking about it in terms of learning and in terms of college, remember when I said when the amygdala kicks into action, the first thing it does is quit stimulating everything in your brain except for what you need for survival. So part of what you need in your brain in a testing situation is memory and recall. But when you have this hormone dump and this extreme stress response, what happens, the parts of your brain that are responsible for memory and recall are understimulated. And so that's the biological cause for when students will say, I don't know, I got the test and I went blank. Didn't matter how much I had studied. Got that test and nothing. That's what happened to me in that statistics class. I had studied, I got that test, saw 2 questions, panicked. Everything else went out my head. All I could do was handle the panic in that moment. So there are also consequences for holding on to that stress. we know that stress has, although it's kind of thought of as a mental factor or an emotional factor, holding on to stress and not finding healthy ways to deal with it, healthy outlets, healthy coping strategies, lead to all kinds of things. It increases your risk of depression. It changes your brain structure. So this is really interesting. That amygdala is responsible for your stress. That's your stress center. The more often the amygdala is engaged, the more it grows. So a larger amygdala releases more of those stress hormones, creates even stronger stress responses. And the more often those stress responses are engaged, the bigger the amygdala gets. So it's kind of this cyclical thing that can happen, which actually does change the actual structure of our brain. Memory issues. When you're engaged in that stress scenario, that might be the times where your partner or your mother or whoever it might be says, now I told you all about that the other day. And you're like, I don't think you did. I don't remember anything about that. And they swear up and down. Well, sometimes if we're hearing things in peak stress periods, we just don't register them. We don't remember them. And then health problems in general. Stress, is associated with issues with your heart. It's associated with issues around weight and eating habits. Stress impacts your relationships. Experiencing extreme anxiety can be, if it gets to extremes, it can be crippling to not be able to engage in certain circumstances or certain activities or events because of the impacts of stress on your life. So what we want to be really super thoughtful about then is, okay, well, what can I do to change that? Because there's nothing set here. There's nothing that you can't work on to see improvements. And so we'll talk for a second here about self-care. So I'll give you an opportunity again to come off of mute or to drop something in chat. If you want to share a little bit about what is your routine in terms of self-care, or if you don't have a routine, what do you think is getting in the way of you taking care of yourself? And we'll just talk a little bit about what that looks like.
Hi.
Hi.
I like to walk if I get really stressed. Or I also find coloring relaxing.
That's a good one. All those adult coloring books. I have an adult coloring book with bad words that sometimes cracks me up and I find relaxing. Walking, exercising in general is definitely a good stress management technique. Even if you're not exercising, going outside, even if you're not hiking through the woods, being in nature, sitting beside a lake or a pond, taking a walk through your neighborhood, going to the park and swinging on the swing, drive to, go up Skyline Drive, look over the valley, like those kinds of things. Getting reconnected with nature, getting reconnected with the earth do make a difference. Some people will even say take off your shoes and let your feet touch the grass or the ground or whatever the case may be. Sit down, lay down. All of those things can make a difference. What else? And thanks for sharing, Brittany.
I want to chime in. I'm not a student, sorry.
Oh, you go right ahead.
I think one thing that stopped me from self-care is just having to commit myself to a lot of responsibilities for family. So like I am the oldest daughter of an immigrant parents who don't speak English at all. So basically I parent them too and then parent my younger siblings too and do their paperwork and citizenship stuff and all those things. Sometimes I find myself never have moment alone at all. And I'm like I have to have some quiet time sometimes because there's just so many things going on.
Yes. Yeah, family responsibilities, carrying the burden of being the connection between your family and the outside world, even though you might not experience that as a burden, but the weight of being that connection, that's a lot, and that's high stakes stuff. Anybody else? All right. So again, feel free to chime in. We'll talk about this just for a little bit. One of the things that I think we are sometimes guilty of when we think about self-care is we think about self-care as it's been defined by other people. And I'm just going to acknowledge here in the chat, Catherine likes to do yoga, which is a really great stress reliever for a lot of things. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And sleep, yes, I love a nap. So thinking about self-care, if we define it the way kind of society at large defines it, you see a lot of like, take a bath, get your nails done, go out to lunch with a friend or grab coffee with a friend, or things that are kind of like in the moment, things that are maybe stereotypically associated with stress relief and with self-care. And those things are all forms of self-care. But one of the things that I think you want to do when you're talking about incorporating stress reduction strategies into your life is start thinking about how can you create your life in different ways so that that stress management is built in to your life and not just the thing you do when you get to the breaking point. So one of the biggest tools in stress management is 2 letters, no. One of the biggest tools for stress management in our lives is, nope, I can't take that on at this time. Nope, I'm not available for that. Nope, I can't do homemade cookies for the classroom, but I can go to the store and buy some. Okay, I can take that on. What would you like for me to give up in order to prioritize that? We're not always good at those 2 letters, no. Most of us want to be helpful. Most of us want to be valued by our coworkers, by our teammates, by our families. And sometimes I think we get a little confused about all the ways that can manifest itself. So I try, when I find that I've said yes to too many things, and now I am overwhelmed, stressed out, unhappy, not being the best employee, wife, mother, friend in the world, because I've taken on too much and I'm feeling like I'm at my breaking point, is to try to remember for the future, like, none of those people want me to be a hot mess. My boss doesn't want me to be a hot mess. My kids don't want me to be a hot mess. So thinking a little bit about giving ourselves some grace, because most other people will give us grace if we say, wow, I would love to, but I just can't take that on. And we don't even have to do it with an excuse. We can just say, no, I don't think so. But it's hard to do. Saying no when you know it's in your best interest to say no is a skill you have to develop over time. And the only way you develop that skill is kind of like playing tennis. You got to practice. So practicing, kind of figuring out, okay, what am I capable of and still be a healthy, happy individual? And where do I need to maybe let some things go? Even sometimes when those things are important. If you, Brittany shared that Brittany's a mom. I'm a mom. Chris is a dad. We've got, some of us who have kids here. And I think if we think about things we've sacrificed for our kids and being a good parent, I will say I have sacrificed a super clean house. Like I might not be a hot mess, my house is just about all the time. That's super important. But as long as like the floors are getting mopped and the bathrooms are getting cleaned and the dishes get done, if the clutter piles up sometimes and I'm just like, nope, I can't do it. Or, if I just don't have it in me to do a load of laundry every day after work and end up having to do 6 loads on Saturday, so be it. It's like not the end of the world that the hampers are full for the week. So when you think about self-care, like I think it's really important to do an assessment of not only what are the things that I do for myself because they make me feel better, but also what are the things that I do for myself because they make me healthier? What are the things that I should not be doing because it's causing more harm than good in my life? And so kind of thinking through some of those things and thinking about self-care from that larger perspective of how do I make daily decisions that help me take care of myself, rather than, okay, I'm at the max, I need to go get a massage or I need to hop in the bathtub. So, the ideas of like getting out into nature, taking a walk, practicing yoga on a daily basis, making sure that you get a nap in every weekend, even if it's just a 20-minute power nap, like those kinds of things you can, those are good, like healthy lifestyle things that you can implement for yourself. But that's the way I would encourage you to think about it, is not like these one-off stress management things we do, but decision making that we do on a daily basis that helps us to manage our stress. So we'll skip ahead here and we're going to do some practical stuff. Let me check my time. Doing good on time. So let me go back here to the chat. Catherine likes to do yoga. So I'm going to guess that Catherine is probably the biggest pro among us on breathing exercises, because that's a core component of a yoga class. So one of the things that you can do in terms of stress management is to actually find some different strategies that work for you, not just in terms of like daily, life and daily stress management, but also the things that you can kind of pull out of your pocket when you're in one of those periods where you are acutely stressed out. Like something has happened, like narrowly averting a car crash. Have you ever had that happen where like somebody almost hit you, but you saw them coming and you like dodged out of the way at the last minute? And then like you get that adrenaline and you start sweating and you're breathing hard and you're trembling. So some of these exercises can help in moments like that, when the stress thing has already happened. Some of them can help you when you're going into a stressful situation, to kind of keep that amygdala in check, keep it from going through its whole stress response thing. So if we go back to our stress, our test anxiety concept, I will kind of talk about these in terms of test anxiety. So one of the things that we know works is associated with this idea of biofeedback, paying attention to our body and changing things to help our body function better. So breathing exercises is a good example of this. It's very relaxing. It's very healthy for us in terms of getting carbon monoxide out of our lungs and out of our bloodstream and getting more oxygen into our bloodstream. More oxygen in the bloodstream means more oxygen in the brain, all good things. So one of the things that you can do is do a breathing exercise. And you can do this laying down in your bed at night. You can do this in the car when you get to campus before a big test day. You can run into the bathroom and do it right before you take the test, or in the midst of the test if you feel like the panic is starting to come on. So this is one of those things where if you start practicing it regularly, you can kind of drop into it whenever you feel like, uh-oh, I feel myself amping up. I feel myself gearing up for a freak out. This is an intervention that you can do. So what I'm going to ask everybody to do is either be laying down if you're in a situation that allows for that. If not, in a seated position. If you're sitting, scoot to the edge of your chair, like the very front of your chair. And then kind of like, we want to get some good posture going. So we might just kind of work those shoulders for a minute, kind of squeeze the shoulder blades together and then let them go, and then give ourselves a big hug, and then not hug ourselves anymore, and then try to wear your shoulders as your earrings for just a minute, and then drop them. So all those things, get the wiggles, just get ourselves a little loosened up for a minute. And then what we're going to do is we're going to practice breathing. And if you've ever been in a choir before, you have to learn how to belly breathe. If you've been in a yoga class, you probably learned that. But when you're doing a good deep breath, and most of us are shallow breathers most of the time. When you do a really good deep breath, you're forcing air further down in your lungs. And what it's going to feel like in your body is you're bringing in enough air to push your stomach out. So sometimes it's helpful to do it on a count. So like breathing in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then slowly breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4. For a lot of us, it helps to kind of put our hands on our stomach so that when we're breathing, we can kind of feel physically what's happening to our body. And we want when we are full of air, we want that stomach to come out some. So feeling for that. Most of us don't do deep breathing all that often. So I'm going to say no more than 3 deep breaths at a time until you've built up your stamina. Otherwise, you might feel a little lightheaded and dizzy. So I'm going to stop talking. And what I want everybody to do is just get that posture good. Feel like a string is pulling your head into the ceiling. And just 3 times, I want you to focus on breathing really deep, getting that stomach to pouch out, and then breathing out and kind of slowly. So 3 times, and each time we're going to try to bring in as much air as we can. So now you can go on and get started. All right. So did that make anybody like physically, did it make your body feel any different? No? Maybe we didn't do enough. All right, Catherine's feeling calmer. My fingers are tingling. Anybody else?
My shoulders aren't as tense.
It's
I
funny
feel
how just
calmer.
bringing attention to them.
I feel calmer.
Okay. So all of these are the things we should be feeling when we're doing some deep breathing. So this is sort of like, again, like playing a sport. We aren't very good at conditioning ourselves to do good deep breathing unless we're practicing it regularly. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is to make it part of your daily routine. And you kind of figure out where that fits within your daily routine. For me, unless like I have something acute going on that I'm like, ooh, I'm stressing out, I need to take a minute and breathe. The best time for me to practice this is when I'm laying in the bed before I go to sleep at night. That's how I kind of get myself in the habit, get my body adjusted to being able to do that kind of breathing. So the more you practice it when you're not freaking out, the better it works for you when you are. It's a good strategy. Another strategy is doing visualization exercises. So has anybody walked through any visualization exercises with anyone before? Yoga teacher, counselor, that aunt who is a guru of some sort. Anybody ever done anything with that? All right, so we've got a couple of people who've done some. One thing that I like to share is I'm going to talk about kind of 3 different activities real quickly, and we'll actually do one of them together. When I, early in my career, I worked in a program that served survivors of domestic violence and sexual violence. And as you can imagine, people who've experienced those kinds of traumas do have a lot of triggers that are harmful for them. And so kind of figuring out those coping strategies for how to manage those triggers is a really important part of recovery. And so a couple of the things that I'm going to teach are things that I learned in reference to that work with survivors of violence, and some of the things that I've seen work for different people in real life. So the first one of these is a very simple visualization exercise. Has anybody ever experienced what I call cyclical thinking, or obsessive thinking? So I have a niece that went off the rails years ago, and I worried about that child, who was actually an adult by that point, but that 18-year-old, a lot for a long time. I worried about her getting into trouble. I worried about her relationship with our family. I worried about her with drug and alcohol issues and mental health issues. And I worried about this kid all the time. And I would think about it throughout the day, but where it would really get me is at night, when I was desperately needing to go to sleep and not trying to solve her problems at 4:00 in the morning, because sleep was more urgent for me. But that's when it would, like at night, I would get geared up because everything else, everything calmed down, and that's what my brain would obsess about. And so a good strategy for those obsessive kinds of thoughts for some people is a really simple visualization. And so what you could do in a situation like mine, where you're obsessively thinking about something, is visualize a stop sign. We all know that image, right? It's a octagon. It's red, it has a white outline, it has stop in white, it's all caps, it's a simple font. Like, we all know what that stop sign looks like. It doesn't take much to conjure up that image. So in an obsessive thinking situation, when you catch yourself doing it, would be to stop, close your eyes, breathe for a couple minutes, maybe 3 or 4 good deep breaths, and then visualize that big fat red stop sign. And you tell yourself, I'm not going to keep going down this road. I'm not thinking about this anymore. This isn't the time for me to be thinking about this. I'm going to go left or right, one way or the other. I'm no longer going to think about this right now. So for some people, that like in your face red stop sign works. When I was a kid and I would have a bad dream and I couldn't get back to sleep because I was obsessively thinking about the dream, if I could convince myself to think about baby kittens and baby rabbits instead, I could calm down enough to go to sleep. That was my like, I'm going to make a left-hand turn and I'm going to think about those baby kittens and baby rabbits. I'm not going to go down this road anymore. Very simple, very quick. You can kind of pull it out of the hat at any point in time and implement that one pretty quickly. For me, I, for whatever reason, need a more complicated visualization. I need to be really invested in it. So another visualization is the pirate's chest. So in that visualization, you might close your eyes, take some good deep breaths, and then you picture yourself on a beach. And in front of you on the beach is a treasure chest. And you have to figure out what that treasure chest looks like. Like, is the lid flat or is it kind of rounded? Is the iron that's holding it together rusty? Is it an old skeleton lock? Like, you know, really kind of visualize and perfect this image in your head. And then I visualize myself walking over to it, opening the lock, opening the lid. I literally stand in front of it, stick my head over it, and picture myself flinging my thoughts out of my head. And then I slam the lid closed real quick so the thoughts can't escape out. And I turn the, relock it, and I get the skeleton key. And then I take a minute and decide what to do with the key. If it is like the situation with my niece, I had done everything I could possibly do to help her. Have no control over the situation. There's nothing more I can do. I take that key and I hurl it into the ocean. If, on the other hand, I'm stressing about a test and it's a reasonable thing for me to be concerned about the test, but it's not reasonable for me to do it at 2:00 in the morning, I can start worrying about it again at 8:00 in the morning when I'm ready to study again before the test. In that case, I take the key and I put it in my pocket. And that gives me permission to, at the right time, let all those thoughts back out of the box and keep working on solving the problem. So that's a visualization that works for me. And for whatever reason, I need all of those steps to really get myself ingrained in it and to let go of things. And there are times, I use this one a lot, there are times when I have to stuff those darn thoughts in the box 5 times before I can make them stay. But I go through it, and it is something that has worked well for me. Another exercise that's a little less visualization and a little more practical is a tense and release exercise. So you can lay in your bed at night, and if you've taken a yoga class before, you lay in dead man's pose. If you've never taken a yoga class before that's taught that, it's basically like a spread eagle, open arms on your back on the bed. And you go through a tense and release. So you start at your toes, you tense your toes up as hard as you can, you hold it for 3 seconds and you release. And then you scrunch your feet up, and then you scrunch your calves up, and then your thighs, and you work your way up to your neck, and then you go from your fingers up your arms to your neck, and then eventually you get to your face and you make a scrunchy face that looks like this, where you're like scrunching your muscles as much as you possibly can, and then you release. So you go through that about 3 seconds with every tense and release. And it's a good way of kind of finding where you're holding tension that you don't even realize you're holding tension and letting it go. So that's another exercise that you can do. This last one we're going to do together for a few minutes. And what I need for you to think about going into this is think about what we talked about with the deep breathing, that you need to breathe so that your stomach is coming out, because I'm going to remind you every now and then to do a good deep breath. And I want you to think about a memory. It has to be a real place that you've been before, not like, the online ad for the resort in Jamaica. Like, it needs to be a real place that you have been in your life where you have felt more at peace and more relaxed than anywhere else. So take a second, kind of think about a place that might fit that description for you. And what I'm going to get everybody to do one more time is just kind of look at your posture. Are you slouching or doing anything that's going to stop you from breathing deeply? And I'm going to get everybody to close our eyes. And we're going to just do maybe 2 good deep breaths. So breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. In and out. And I want you to remember this place that you've been, a real place, a real memory from your life. And I want you to visualize yourself in this place. And while you're visualizing yourself, take a moment and just look around. What do you see? Do you see colors? Do you see water, grass? Are you inside or outside? In your mind's eye, slowly turn yourself and look all around you and take in every sight. Remember what it looks like to be in this place. And while you're looking, take some good deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And then take a moment and listen. Think about what you remember hearing in this place. Are you hearing the sounds of nature, music, people talking, children playing, sounds of animals? Look around, see if you can see where the sound is coming from. Let your body remember what it feels like to be in this place. Let your body remember how calm and peaceful you are. Pay attention if there's any tension anywhere in your body, maybe in your feet, your legs, or your hips. And just imagine that tension draining down your legs, through your feet, and out your toes. While you're remembering this place, think about what it smells like. What scents do you associate with being here? Do you smell food? Do you smell nature? Do you smell spices or perfume? Let your mind and your body remembering what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it smells like. Just do some good deep breaths. Taking any tension in your stomach, your lower back, your chest, and you're just breathing that tension out. And think about what it tastes like here. Have you eaten anything? Have you had something to drink? Is it salty or sweet? Is it rich or tart? Is it warm or cold? Remember all of the flavors that you associate with this place. Think about what that food or drink might smell like. And then bring your attention to your body. What does your body feel like in this place? Are you sitting, standing, lying down? What's underneath you and supporting your body? Do you feel the warmth of a blanket, or the sunshine, or a breeze? Just think about each piece of your body and how calm and peaceful and relaxing it is to be back in this place. One more time, just looking around and listening, remembering the smells and the flavors, and remembering the sense of peace and calm that you feel. Take a few more good, deep cleansing breaths, and when you're ready, open your eyes. So, I like that visualization a lot because it ties into our senses. And when we build memories in our brain, those senses are the cues to those memories. So that visualization, I'm able to stay in a little bit better because I so associate those 5 senses with it. Anybody want to share kind of what that felt like for you? Was it relaxing? Did you have a hard time staying in the memory? That's a common experience. Kind of what was that like for you? I'm thinking it might be possible I put you all to sleep.
I was back at the beach.
Yeah. Looks like a lot of us went to the beach. I'm seeing from chat. Was it, Brittany, I'm interested in, and Catherine, were you able to kind of stay in the moment and in the memory, or did you feel like you were like coming back to reality and then having to get back into that memory again?
I felt like I could have stayed there.
Okay, good. So, good. I'm glad that you were having an easy time staying in the memory. I'll be honest, like that is absolutely one of my favorite exercises. And it's my exercise for just general overall, like it's been kind of a rough day and I just need a minute to like let go of things. So I do this one a lot. And because I do it a lot, I'm able to keep myself in that memory. I find it easier to keep myself in the memory when I use a guided visualization when someone else is reminding me of what to do than it is necessarily when I walk myself through it in my own head. So that's kind of a thought for you, and I'll share some sources for that in a minute. Like I said, that one is a good one because it's attached to our senses, and our senses are how we build memory. So I like that one a lot. It works best for you when you practice it on the regular. So you want to practice it when you're not freaking out and not stressing out so that you can fall into it when you are. And I will also share that depending upon my mood and depending upon my situation, I don't always go to the same place. Like the beach is my happy place and I go there a lot. but there is a place in the forest near my parents' home, that my childhood home, that sometimes like I feel homesick, I guess. I don't know. I need to go back there. There are other times when it's in my grandmother's living room on her couch. So, it's okay. And it's a great thing to kind of experiment with like different memories and different, kind of different times in your life. It's not a one size fits all. So we know we live in this world where like there's an app for that, for just about anything. So these are some of the most common apps that students will use for this kind of thing. So I will say the Calm app, I think there are some things that you can access without paying. Most of their content you do have to purchase. A lot of our colleagues use Headspace. Personally, I like Insight Timer because it's 100% free, and I love how their search engine works. So I can do a search for trouble sleeping. I can do a search for headaches. I can do a search for relationship drama. I like that. I love that it's free. And I love that I can kind of tailor, what I'm looking for out of the experience, and I can find things that are a length of time that works with whatever I have going on in my life too. But different things work well for different people. So I would encourage you to experiment, like try some of these apps, try some of these different guided meditations for different things. Some of them you can just find like ocean sounds, and you can do your relaxation just to ocean sounds if you're trying to like do the visualization thing. So definitely you can tweak, you can customize, you can find the thing that works for you. The key being whatever it is, do it often, practice it so that you have like the muscle memory and the mental muscle memory to stay in the moment as you're doing it, and to be able to use it when you're going into periods of high stress. So like that visualization of your happy place is something that if you have a high stakes test and you drive to campus, maybe you want to arrive 10 minutes early and you want to do that meditation before you even get out of the car, because you want to keep that amygdala in check, right? You want to thwart it before it can go dumping all of this cortisol and adrenaline. So definitely try these things out. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention our We Care page, which the one LFCC I didn't fix, which is now laurelridge.edu/WeCare. There are different local resources there that can help with not necessarily always stress management, but the other stuff in life that causes us stress, financial resources. We do have free mental health counseling now. It is telehealth, and it is through a company called Timely Care. If you are already enrolled in fall classes, then you would be eligible to receive services. Catherine, my yoga friend, they do teach regular yoga classes through Timely Care. They also do some guided meditation stuff in Timely Care. They have a 24-hour Talk Now helpline, which most of the time, if you call a national hotline, you are getting a volunteer who's answering, a trained volunteer, but a volunteer nonetheless. Timely Care staffs their hotline with professionals in the field. So you can talk to a professional, you can get scheduled counseling services, 6 meetings in a year, and you can also see a psychiatrist and get meds prescribed if you need to within that program as well. So that's called Timely Care, and you can find the app for that when you log into your My Laurel Ridge login page. It will be one of your options on there to access. So that wraps up what I have for you. But I have time if you have questions, or if you want to share any final thoughts, or need to ask for any kind of assistance. I'll just hang out here for a little bit, and if not, hopefully you're feeling at peace and zen, and you can just go out and enjoy your life.
All right, any questions for Amber? Catherine says thank you. Amber, I'm gonna also say thank you. The visualization and the breathing helped me, because like I was feeling some tense in my neck all day here today, and that definitely helped. So thank you.
The really
Thank
funny
you.
thing. Oh, you're welcome. Funny thing for me is every time I leave this session, I'm like, gosh, I really needed that, because I try to breathe and remember myself. So, well, thanks everybody for joining. I hope you have a really great start to your Laurel Ridge experience. And if you ever need me, I am here. I am accessible. Even though I have this Dean of Students title, you can just call me Amber, email me, call me, stick your head in the office at any point in time. I'm always happy to help.
All right, well, thank you, Amber. And before you guys go, I do want to remind you to go to our summer series page at laurelridge.edu/summer series. Complete the entry form because you attended today's session. And then you will be entered to win a $100 Visa gift card. Entries must be submitted by August the 15th, and we will announce our winners on Leo's weekly update email on August 22nd, which is the first day of class. All right, everyone, have a good one.
Well, hello.
Sorry, I can't find my controls. I'm trying to stop the recording. What's the deal?
Oh, I'm stopping.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, wait. Are you sure you want to stop recording?